I saw heaven, and now I want nothing more than to sin. For full context, I am a crime scene cleaner. I'm not normally allowed to discuss my work in any means, but it's more a risk of getting fired than it is any legal trouble. I could not possibly care any less about getting fired at this point. I might quit if anything. I've been in this job for about 6 years. Now I clean up anything crime related for a whole range of situations to violent murders. It doesn't affect me too much anymore, but I can say it doesn't disgust me every time. There's nothing I can't lose my sleep over by now though. I'm not always cleaning by myself. There's other people around me, detectives, families, other cleaners, whatever. It's more rare for me to be completely alone on the job, but today I was. It was thought to be a suicide. That's why they let me stay on the scene alone to clean. With murders and such, there's always detectives and police around without fail. Today, I was by myself, save for the single police officer sitting a few rooms away going through all the notes the victim wrote to himself. The scene was gross, as I often deal with. Blood and dirty gray brain matter splattered out against the wall and floor. Tiny bone fragments from everywhere he shot himself through the skull. The body had already been removed, the bathroom examined in detail. All that remained was for me to extradite the mess. It was eerily quiet that morning. Once everyone else had left for a while, I could hear the officer shuffling through papers, occasionally scribbling down some notes of his own. I didn't think much of it. When the rustling stopped, he probably just looking at a long note or analyzing it in detail. Then I heard a thud, a door opening. I stopped what I was doing, relentlessly scrubbing down the sink, and listened. It was dead silent. Other than the air conditioner. Hesitant, I stuck my head out the bathroom and glanced down the hall, calling out to the officer. I knew I was only a good 10 feet away in the study. Officer Parks? There was no reply. I exited the bathroom and took a few steps to the study. The door was open, and as I leaned in, I saw Officer Park sitting with his head on the desk. His back still rose and fell, telling me he was alive, but the shallow pace said it wasn't by much. Certainly not conscious. I thought about going in and shaking him or just grabbing his radio and calling for backup, but my hands were under several layers of bloody gloves. So I started taking them off when I noticed an unnatural smell. I didn't recognize it or what it was, but it certainly wasn't a normal house scent. It was some kind of gas. Definitely not about to take off my hazmat suit mask to investigate. And I instead started to look for a source with the weak lead while still struggling to take my gloves off. Then I heard footsteps. I couldn't turn all the way around in time. Cold metal slammed against my soul and I was out with no seconds to spare. When I found my consciousness floating to the surfaces, I wasn't quite sure where I was. The ground my cheek was squished against did not feel like hardwood of the floors of the house, or even in the carpet in the study. It was soft and gentle, welcoming. I gathered my strength and breath, then lifted my head. In front of me was a wide, sprawling staircase. I couldn't bring myself to look up any further, so I reached up and placed one hand on the bottom step. It was cold. Moving my other hand forward to the second step, I began to pull myself to the top of the stairs. The process was slow, arduous, painful, but there was this undeniable voice in my head begging me to keep going up. Finally, one reach of my left hand sees nothing. I was even at the ground. I continued to crawl forward until my hand scraped what seemed to be a fence. Using it as a ladder, I pulled myself to my feet, finally looking up at my surroundings. I did not stand on clouds, but rather souls. They glowed gently beneath me, but quivered when I tried to step forward. The fence I leaned against was purely white, with quartz-like pillars that stretched beyond my eyesight. Dark veins ran through it, pulsing as if they were very material that they were built from was alive. There was a heavy-looking lock on the gate that was just marked with a strange symbol. It had no key or passcode, just a small hole. I did not dare look beyond the gate. I turned my head a little more, looking for any sign of life. There was only a little lamb sitting asleep in front of the gate. It was the purest white I'd ever seen. Slowly, I started towards it, falling to my knees next to the delicate sleeping lamb. My hand rested on its head, almost instinctively. It did not move. I scratched behind its little ears and began to steer, much to my relief. It was just a small animal, but any life was comfort at the moment. The lamb opened its eyes and looked at me. My whole body felt like it froze. It had such human eyes. It stared so deeply into me, like it can read me, my every thought and feeling. I gave a gentle bow and looked beyond the gate. I finally worked up the courage to follow his gaze and see into the kingdom of God. I could not truly describe what I saw. It was worldly, unlike anything I've experienced before. There are a few words I could possibly use to express heaven. Awing, inspiring, daunting, devastating, a magnificent desolation. In the truest sense I could ever mean it, completely terrifying. I tore my eyes from the unseemly sight and faced the lamb again. It stared at me with its horrible human gaze. I looked into the eyes of God and wept. I sobbed, crying terribly like I had never had before. My body seized up, practically convulsing me into the tears. It bore me back into unconsciousness. When I could open my eyes again, all I could see were a pair of shoes, someone standing in front of me. But my vision was blurred, blood dripping into my eyes, but I could just barely make out a person walking away from holding a metal mallet. He was tall and with slick back hair. He turned to face me only once before walking out the door. I suppose my eyes were glazed over enough that he thought I was out. I lay there for a long time. I don't know how long exactly. My head was brimming with thoughts I had never truly experienced. Violence. Being a crime scene cleaner only made me ever more against violence. But then as I laid there, concussed, it's all I could think about. What it means to sin. I thought about this bloody man and his mallet. Whatever he had done to Officer Parks, what he had made done to the person whose body I had just cleaned up. If he may come back. That's what did it. I thought he might come back and finish me off was enough to make me force myself up. I dragged myself back out to my car, flopping down in the driver's seat and sitting there. I looked down at my hands. I was still in my hazmat suit, which I usually had to take off before I get back in my car, but I don't care anymore. I drove home. Definitely not my smartest idea, considering the throbbing pain in my head, but I returned to my apartment anyway. To be honest, I'm only writing this out because I've been trying to drive the thoughts away. It hasn't helped. I want nothing more than to absolutely buy my ticket to hell with bloody hands. I should make that man pay for what he made me see. I'm going to find him and make him witness what I had to. He will face retribution, and one day, so will I. Once again.